Matt Luke tells us there's no magic wand to fixing Clemson. We'll talk about it right here on Locked on Clemson.
You are Locked on Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked on Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Hey, thank you so much for making Locked on Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And to the everydayers out there, big salute to you for hanging with us Monday through Friday every single week. And if you're new to the show, welcome in. Why don't you join us? Hit that like and subscribe button so you can never miss another episode. Speaking of this episode, it is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. We got a big lineup for this afternoon. Speaking on today's show, talking about the magic wand. Does Clemson need one? Will it even work if you had one? How players must respond this weekend, and who really is failing who. Clemson says it is all about the little things. That's what we've heard all week, all bye week during this time, is that it's really just the little things. And a lot of me wants to say, yes, that is true. It does seem like there's some little footwork problem here and there. It does seem like that there's some blocking problems and some sustaining block problems and some positioning problems, and then finishing plays, making those catches, winning the one-on-ones. There's a lot of those little things that are coming up throughout the season, really in every single game so far. How can a top 10, or at least a preseason top 10 team, really what we think is a top 10 level of talent team, still be haunted by all the little details? And Dabo came out and said that it's the fundamentals, it's techniques, it's sustaining blocks, it's getting off blocks, it's footwork, it's all the routine, as he said, football stuff. And he recently came out and said this week that it's about communication as well, and not being able to get to clean things up by just talking to each other better. And it just can't happen going forward if they're going to continue to try to actually win these games going forward. So where Dabo comes in is another thing about playing together. Reese Davis recently came out and said they just don't they like each other, like they get along, like they're working well together. And I think you'd probably agree with that as well, is that it seems like there's some individualistic part of it where you're like, man, that one player just really didn't do his thing. And well, then this other player didn't really do his assignment. But then there's also kind of like a feeling that they're not working well together. And that's where more recently I started to kind of question Tom Allen's approach to defense, in what it seems to be exposing their weaknesses more than hiding their weaknesses. And then on the flip side, you have Garrett Riley exposing what seems to be their weaknesses more than hiding those weaknesses on the offense, going away from what we feel like works or what we're seeing that works, and doing things that just is not winning games for them. So there needs to be a big reset from the coordinator position for sure. I'm not saying that Tom Allen is not working out. I mean, it is still the first year of his tenure at Clemson. He does have to install his method and his strategy that he has with the players, and they have to be on the page. And maybe they're just not. Somebody messaged me and said, well, Morgan, Tom Allen just needs to get his players. And I'm like, what are you talking about? His players. I mean, we're talking about a team that has a roster full of guys that should be able to be, or at least perform at a high level with any defensive coordinator. So to say his players, I don't really get that at all. And I completely disagree. I do feel as if maybe, just maybe, that there's something not working with the 4-2-5. And the main thing that's not working with the 4-2-5, in my opinion, is that it could work for Clemson. It's just that the 6 guys they have in the box are just not strong enough. Let's be honest. I mean, really, the one guy that's been shining the most has been Will Helt, and the rest of them seem to be getting bottled up more often than not, and not making the big plays behind the line of scrimmage as what we were expecting. So they're not getting pressure with just 6. They're not getting pressure with 4, that's for sure. 5, yes. 6, not even that, for sure. So it's exposing your secondary pretty heavily in this first part of the season. So to me, that's where you see the most breakdowns with the defense. That's where you see it get worse in the red zone, is just that pressure, opens up big plays, big chunk plays, but then in the red zone as well, that lack of pressure, if you will, allows the quarterbacks to just have more time to figure out what they're going to do. They got to communicate better on defense and really on offense as well, to figure out and be on the same page and work together. But then once that communication gets better and they're running the plays and they're in the right spots, then they individually have to be better as well. Matt Luke came out recently, which I was curious to see what his perspective was on it, because to be honest with you, I got as many question marks as I have in Garrett Riley and Tom Allen. Don't you think you have a lot of the same question marks around Matt Luke as well? He was brought in to be this offensive line, mastermind, and his offensive line is really tenured and really experienced, and has gotten worse. So I'm really curious of what they're going to do going forward. He came out and said, hey, there's no magic wand. There's no easy fix for this. It's just going to go down to hard work. Really, for me, when we talk about and we gripe about the portal, that seems like an easy fix, but that is a fix for 2026. That's a fix for 2027. It's not a fix for 2025 at all. So anything that's happening right now that could have been done in the portal would have needed to be done in 2023 and in 2024, which, if you really think back to it, at least specifically with the offensive line, did not Dabo Swinney go heavily after some offensive linemen in the portal and swing and miss on every single one of the guys he went to? And then all of a sudden, he just didn't need them anymore. And he brought in heavier recruiting classes in high school. But again, it goes back to, congratulations, you did that. But now those players are going to take time to develop. They're true freshmen. When you were going into the portal and needing to get guys, you were needing to get guys that could contribute immediately. But then you replace them with guys who can't. And still, you're not seeing any true freshmen get in there. You're not seeing many sophomores get in there, really. Most of this offensive line is your seniors, your graduates, and your redshirt juniors, or whatever it may be. So you've got a very tenured offensive line that's getting the majority, if not all, of the snaps. So you aren't getting any fresh looks on that offensive line. So there's, to me, no clear magic wand in that case, because you've got the players who you've got. He also mentioned having to deal with an Okie front and the challenges that present. Tackles just kind of oversetting. The center Ryan Linthicum being challenged to handle one-on-one a big nose tackle. And if you think an Okie front, the way that I think about it is a 3-4 defense. You have typically a big giant nose tackle in the middle, and then 2 edge rushers on the outsides, and there's a huge gap in between the 2. And you would think that would be a bad thing, right? Because Clemson typically does the 4 down linemen. If you only do 3 down linemen, then your linebackers have to be very athletic and very nasty and willing to get in there and basically be kind of like a late arriving defensive lineman, and that also seems to be causing some confusion on Clemson's offensive line. Like, how are they managing and communicating and handing off the linebackers and the defensive front linemen? I don't think they've done a very good job at the beginning of the season so far. To me, if you ask me what's one thing outside of Cade Klubnik that I want to see improve drastically for the rest of the season, it's Matt Luke's group and that offensive line. All right, hey, we're going to continue the discussion here on Locked On Clemson about what Matt Luke talked about and how the offensive line can build confidence going forward. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me options to do things during the game live. I was watching the Boston Red Sox and Yankees game last night, looking at FanDuel. I decided not to do anything last night. I got a little bit of cold feet, but it was really cool to see what they have available for the live in-game options on the FanDuel app. And it's super easy to use. You can scroll through, you can make a decision or not make a decision as I did last night, but still it makes it a little bit more fun because you can kind of see the game, get a feel of what's going on. And then they have all different other kind of options. If you don't want to do that, you can do something else like parlays and fantasy as well. So whether you're a casual fan like me when it comes to baseball or a diving in and really loving the analytics into college football, FanDuel makes that experience that much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com, join the FanDuel app today and get started. This episode is also brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spot runs on Square. There are certain businesses that make a neighborhood feel like a home. And whether it's a sports bar packed on a game day or a coffee shop that knows your order by heart or the local deli that's been a part of your community for decades, these places do bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole community thrives right along with them. And behind the scenes, many of those spots are actually powered by Square. Just like Chestnut Coffee House and Market, owned and operated by big-time Clemson fans, where their focus is on unity, hospitality, and creating a moment of pause in your day. Businesses like these turn daily routines into community rituals. Square makes that special connection possible. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be glad you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Dabo says the players are coachable, but they're pressing a lot right now. Matt Luke says that losing has just been magnifying all of their mistakes they've been making. So how are they going to handle this adversity? Is it going to build them into something better, or is it going to break them down and expose how fragile this team is? Well, it really all comes down to what they do on Saturday. In my opinion, this game against North Carolina is the game. Whether they're going to be fragile and break apart, or whether they're going to forge forward and build on this into a season that you can be proud of. Because right now, the season is not one to brag about or to write home about at all. It is really one that has been embarrassing so far. But this game against the Tar Heels could be that reset that they need. They need to get more consistent. All 11 guys haven't been on the same page. And even Dabo Swinney acknowledges that. Whenever you go back and look at the film, what do you see? You see one or two guys that just make you scratch your head like, what is going on right here? If these guys don't get on the same page and communicate better, then they will continue to falter. If a guy doesn't respond the way that the coaches need him to respond, then they've got to bench that player. We've been talking about it for 2 weeks now. We want to see it on Saturday. Hey, if you're a player and you're a starter, your starting position should not be guaranteed. It should still be the same way it was in fall camp, where you're starting from scratch. And this thing about earning trust has been a big frustration for me too. The team has got a lot of good players, a lot of good kids. They all want to win. We've all heard that they care about the program and that they want to do better than what they've been doing. So we also hear these things from coaches. Well, we want to play these players more, but they've got to earn our trust. I don't know how you're going to earn any trust if they don't get to actually play. You know, if you're letting them do something in practice, but then nothing in a game, then why would you want to continue to push in practice at all? You've got to be able to reward them in some way. in the actual game. And it can't be so rigid about these starters, because I got to be honest with you, the starters ain't it. They're not doing it for us. They're not making those plays. They are making those mistakes. They're not communicating. So you know what they have to do? They have to watch it from the sideline like the rest of us, because it really is one of those things that really gets frustrating. Losing does magnify everything. Dabo talked about the fun is in the winning. And when you're not winning, you're not having fun. I mean, you see it from if you've ever coached youth league sports, to middle school, to high school, to college, whatever level you've ever coached, whether it be your kid, grandkids, whatever it is, you know what I'm talking about. Losing is not fun at any level. Now, typically when you're really young, the losing part maybe not as bad, and rotating players maybe not as bad. But then when you get better and further along, there's a lot of pressure on the outside to win these games. And there's also a lot of pressure to actually play positions and areas that are of utmost significance for the team, for those players. So the players want to be out there and pushing. I'm sure their parents want them to be out there and pushing and striving to help this team out. The coaches have to recognize that better and get these guys out there that maybe can provide some sort of spark. To me, it might come from somebody who's just not getting any opportunities. You never know, but they have to be able to try it. And I get where losing magnifies everything, but at the end of the day, Clemson fans, I think for the most part, I speak for them in saying that the winning and losing is not even that big of a deal as long as this team actually looks like they know what they're doing. So can they come out this Saturday and look like they know what they're doing? Well, they better, right? They better, because we've seen it already. Other teams that are Power 4 teams have been able to actually beat the Tar Heels significantly. So if Clemson comes out and struggles and can't get points on the board, can't move the ball again, the first half is just really lackluster. To me, I'm probably chalking this season up as a disaster at that point. I'm probably chalking this team up as fragile instead of forging forward, to me, because this has to be the game. This is it. This is the one that's going to hopefully snowball this season towards something redeemable, and they've already shown that they're losing home games, and away games are always difficult. At least this one's not a very far one. Boston College will be, but Chapel Hill's not too far away. So they have to be able to make this game, to show this game that they can move and improve going forward. But really, I will say this too. They know what they have to do, but you can't focus on just simply winning the game or just simply scoring more points than the other team. Now, that is the baseline of it. But for an individual player, they really need to worry the least about the outcome. And that's why I say it needs to be less about winning and losing and more about just showing that you look like you know what you're doing. And that goes back with being on the same page with the coaches, being on the same pages with the players that are beside you and around you, and then specifically executing the play call and the assignment that you were given. Don't go off on some sort of wild goose chase outside of your zone or away from your man or whatever it may be. Stick to what you've been told to do and do that at a high level. Start there. Then you can go out and make some superhero play. Then you can go out and pancake block 2 or 3 guys on the way to a touchdown. Then you can make those awesome plays that will get you on SportsCenter top 10. But when it comes to making making the team look like they know what they're doing, it goes back to not focusing on the big picture and focusing on the little picture of exactly what you're doing, one play at a time. And you would really expect this from players like Walker Parks, Tristan Lee, Blake Miller. I mean, the whole offensive line, you would expect this to have been the case, but it's just not the case. So whatever Matt Luke and Dabo Swinney have to do to reset this offensive line and say, hey, fellas, you've been around for so long. You know what college football is about. You know what the opposition's going to be about. You know what Clemson's offensive play calling is going to be about. Hey, maybe stop worrying so much about everything else that's going on and just do what you're supposed to do. Don't try to do too much. do exactly what you need to do. Some of that too comes into play. Pushing those guys to do that comes from allowing guys behind them to get opportunities if those front guys are making mistakes. And it goes back to what we've been saying all week. If we continue to see on Saturday those starters make dumb mistakes and play outside of their abilities and try to do too much, and I'm really focusing on the offensive line here for this podcast version, but I'll say this, or episode, but these guys have got to have their opportunities. And I'm more of a three strikes you're out guy, but I can understand where some fans are at the point where it's like, hey, one strike and you're out. You want to see Braden Jacobs, and you want to see some other players on the offensive line that maybe haven't got as many snaps as guys, because there has to be some sort of level of punishment, if you will, or accountability to take players out. You have to be able to trust your backups. They talked about Easton Ware too, being the main right tackle backup and going into this season, and then he got injured, and how much that has really hurt this team. Well, I can understand that too, because now it seems like they can't use anybody else other than Blake Miller. When Blake makes a mistake, there's nobody else behind him, and that's an unfortunate thing. But I will say that it kind of goes back to Dabo a few years ago was trying to get offensive linemen in the portal and then seemed to stop and be okay with what he got in high school. And I think that may be rearing its head and showing a little more now as a mistake. I think if Dabo, and I don't want to put any words, but if it was me and I was Dabo Swinney, I'm looking back and I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, they should have really pushed hard to get some of those offensive linemen like a Keelan Rutledge. I mean, a starter, a all-conference guy for Georgia Tech, was originally trying to be persuaded to come to Clemson. It didn't work out, but there were some other guys too that went on to the NFL now that Dabo was going after hard in the portal for offensive line, and then he just kind of stopped because it didn't work out. And I think when you look at that now, it may have been a mistake overall. Confidence, is like your Wi-Fi. This team needs to come out and have a strong confidence, because when you're strong, it doesn't matter what part of the house you're in. If you could be outside, you could be at the neighbor's house. When you have a strong Wi-Fi, everything's running smooth. Everybody's on the same page. All the electronics are working great. Nobody's angry. The daughter or the son's not banging on your door saying, "What's up with the Wi-Fi?" But when it's weak, even just simply going on to X.com and looking at the Morgan T Show on X, or going to TigerNet, or going to the Clemson Insider, wherever you go to listen, or the RoarFM.com. When you have those buffering and those lags, it frustrates everyone else around. So to me, confidence is kind of like that gel, that they have to build around, and then they have to execute individually and not try to do too much. That's the biggest thing for me. UNC has, this game against UNC and the Tar Heels has the opportunity for them to kind of really reset and get their confidence back, but they need to do it purposefully and immediately from the very first kickoff going forward. All right, we're going to finish up the show talking about accountability. Who's failing who specifically right here on Locked on Clemson. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. Man, it's so soft. It's so nice too. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season, rain, shine, snow, whatever it may be. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode is also brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy, and the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at you at checkout. That's why I always use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I really love the zone deals. I've told you that I've looked at the Clemson games this season, and it's really awesome to go in there. And even if you're going to the away game like Chapel Hill this weekend, you can go in there and you can see what zones are selling at the lowest possible prices, at the best possible deals based on their view, based on the seating arrangement, and where you are located in the stadium. They can easily, it's easier to pinpoint exactly where you might be able to get the best deal. So that's why I like Game Time. Plus, it's super easy and fast and easy and quick to use. And really intuitive. The app just makes sense. So go over and take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Welcome back in here. Segment number 3 on Locked On Clemson. Thank you so much. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss another episode. Dabo called recently the problems with Clemson a coaching failure. But then he also added in there that the players play. So it's kind of like a coaching failure, but also a player execution failure as well. So what is it? Is it coaching or is it players? Where does accountability take place in a program like Clemson? And Dabo said if they could do it without them, they wouldn't need coaches at all. The coaches are there for a reason, and I agree with that. Now coaches are there to make sure that they understand the playbook, that they understand they understand the assignments that they need to do within the playbook and within the different plays. They know the plays, they know the assignments, and then the coaches need to figure out who are the best players to put out on the field at the right time. So they have to think about personnel. They have to think about getting those personnel familiar with the operating procedures, just like you do at your work. So you got to know the manual, you got to know the procedures, and you got to know what your expectation is on your part of the line. Now, here's the thing. They also have to hold that accountable. That's why you have an HR department. That's why you have a supervisor, because you got to be held accountable if you're not meeting expectations, if you're not making those sales. As you know, if you're a sales guy out there, a sales girl out there, that if you don't hit your sales number, somebody's going to tell you about it. Somebody's going to remind you. They're not just going to say, you know what, get them next time, or you're not going to be able to just say, hey, my bad. And maybe there's a little bit of that. Maybe there is a little bit of allowing the my bads to happen too much. You need to be able to hold players accountable to what they are doing and how they are performing on the field. But also, let's put all the onus on the players, because Cade Klubnik, he's been bad. The offensive line, specific players, they've been bad at times. The wide receiver's been bad at times. The defensive line been bad at times. Okay, everybody, there's nobody immune. But I will say this: sometimes it's about not putting players where they're going to be shown their weaknesses as easily as they have. The coaches, and that falls on the coaches to be able to kind of, if you think about like a music conductor, the coaches and the coordinators write the sheet of music. The Dabo Swinney says kind of with the coordinators what they're going to do. The players have to perform the song. If it sounds bad, is it because it's the wrong kind of music? Is it because the players can't play the notes, they can't play the instruments, or is it because maybe the tempo and the setting and the music and the sheet is wrong? Maybe there's some of that preparation. Maybe there's some of that game planning and play calls and situational tactics that just aren't matching up with the team. I've told you that I feel like a little bit like that's why the team doesn't feel coordinated. Would you say that the defense or offense feels coordinated? No, what are we talking about? That they don't look like they play well together. Well, in that case, if they're not coordinated, then what are you thinking? You're thinking, that's got to be something to do with the coordination of the players. And the coordination of the players Who does that? Well, the offense and defensive coordinator and the head coach as well. So it is a little bit of the players for me, for sure. It is also a little bit of the coaches as well. And Matt Luke came out and said, hey, you know what? The assessment from Dabo Swinney is fair. Clemson, you have to expect championships, and accountability is really should be built in and is built in. When you put on the helmet, when you're wearing the orange, when you're wearing the paw, you have a certain level of accountability and expectation that is there. And he praised Dabo Swinney for coming out this week and being authentic and being who he is. But at the end of the day, the coaches have to be empowered to hold the players accountable, but they also have to be reflective enough and mature enough to say, hey, you know what I've been doing is not helping this team avoid the weakness or, avoid the weaknesses and focus on the strengths. What I've been allowing to have happen is causing the weaknesses to be glaring. Alexander the Great said, an army of sheep led by a lion is better than an army of lions led by a sheep. Well, I don't believe that Dabo Swinney is a sheep by any means. And I don't believe these head coaches or the assistant coaches are sheep by any means, but they have to be able to self-reflect and say, hey, you know what, is what I'm doing, am I allowing this? Is this team truly as talented of a lion? Is it an army of lions or is it an army of sheep? Well, we don't believe it's an army of sheep. We believe that Clemson is a little bit more of an army of tigers, if you will. So if it's that and the talent is there, who's leading this team? Is it Dabo Swinney? Is it the position coaches? That's where Clemson has to kind of build from their strength. Dabo has to lead the way. The staff have to rally around Dabo and help lead the way and hold that accountability and amp it up a little bit more. And then who has to respond first? Well, those leaders within the position groups have to respond first and rise to the occasion, because once they do that, then everyone else around them will grab arms, lock arms, and move forward as well. Just as you see with what Dabo does pregame, where he starts at the 20 and he locks arms and moves forward towards the end zone together in one goal, one motion forward, not leaving anybody behind. That is what they need to do in order to move forward with this team. And figuratively and, symbolically, they do that before the game, but they actually have to do it on Saturday. Admitting failure is always the first step to being a step in the right direction. It's refreshing, to be honest with you. Getting this honesty is not meaningless to me, but it will be meaningless if there's no visible changes on Saturday. Accountability and talk of accountability, failures and reflection and talk of failures and reflection is all great on your bye week, is all great during the practice week. But on Saturday, that's when it matters the most. Is this team going to improve by staying the course? Or do they need to evolve and change things here and there to be able to take another step forward? Is Cade Klubnik being failed by the staff, or is he just a quarterback that's reached his maximum potential and possibly gone backwards a little bit? We will see. We will get answers to those questions. I refuse to believe that this team's book is already written. I refuse to believe that. I do believe that this is just one chapter. It's a tough chapter, but man, hopefully they've got through it. The first part of the season and that bye week is all in the past. Now we're amping up towards this game Saturday. Two historic head coaches facing off and getting ready to go up against one another. Who will come out victorious? Well, I'll give you this. My prediction is that Clemson needs to cover the spread, win by more than 2 scores, and be purposeful and show that they have rebounded and reset and score, if not 40 points against the Tar Heels. Anything less or a close game, I'm going to walk away extremely disappointed. Hey, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview show. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch Locked On Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. I hope to see you tomorrow, where I get to talk to Isaac Shad, and we get to talk about the Tar Heels and the Clemson matchup this weekend. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.